Yeah, Gurnesh, please.
Yes, sir. So we have a guest lecture with Mr. Surendra Kaushik over here, and I would like to give us a short introduction about him. First of all, he is the chief innovator and co-founder of Prasu, and Prasu is an innovation consulting company. So, and he's also a TEDx speaker. He has also visited faculty National Science Institute of Design, Ahmedabad, and he is also an advisor incubator at Triple IT Bangalore, and he is also the chief innovator. He also advises major companies like such as we have heard about Bosch, Continental, General Motors, Mercedes Benz, and he has also been a passionate and practicing innovator and technology professional, like for approximately 26 years. And when I went through his profile, and I got to know that he's also a cartoonist, sportsman, actor, and a stand-up comedian. So I was really interested to meet sir, and I wanted sir to tell us about himself, and that he's such a dynamic person that he's in different fields. So sir, we would like to hear that from you as well.
Sure. Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you, Gurnesh.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, I was telling to the student that I saw a few cartoons on your WhatsApp status.
Yeah.
So I was not realizing that these are your own cartoons.
Yes, I draw them. I used to have a website
Yeah,
which.
that's interesting. I thought you have taken. I think it was some Icon Narayanan or something like he used to make that kind of cartoon.
That's a compliment. Thank you.
They were really, really. Now I will look them with more. What do you call it? I'll read them the full one, whatever you have written.
Actually, during the pandemic, I published a book on Amazon also. Maybe I'll share the link sometime. So,
Please.
only cartoons. So, there are more, but yeah.
Right, sir. The forum is for you.
Sure.
Gurnesh, can you please?
Can you see my screen now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I will take you through some of the concepts, which some things you may or may not know, but like Dr. Rahul had a chat that probably I'll leave some time for our discussion also. And since you started talking about some of the things that I do, so feel free to talk about things that you might want to ask me, not necessarily with strategic management, but generally maybe about your options, careers, habits. Um, at 6 o'clock today, Indira Gandhi, Delhi University, I'm giving a talk online about self leadership. So things like that you can feel free to ask, and I think that is also open if you want to attend. Some of you can attend that. So first of all, thanks to Dr. Rahul for inviting me. We had a quick short time to know each other, but I think we got along well. We understood each other's interest, and thank you so much, Dr. Rahul. So I'll try to start with some things that I have learned. So I'll skip this because this is about me. I just only want to tell you that my LinkedIn is at the top with the same name. In case somebody wants to connect with me, we can do that. We work basically across different kinds of options, industry, academia, and startups. Why is this important? Is each of them need different kinds of strategies to be successful. Strategy is actually a very nice big word, but it is a very heavily loaded word. So anything which includes what, why, how, when, how much, everything put together can be called strategy in one word. But having said that, industry uses different approaches than academia, and startups uses different approaches than industry, and so on. So we work with these companies, and even between them, even if you see, for example, a Volvo and a Daimler, Mercedes Benz, and General Motors, so though they seem to be automotive companies, their strategies are different. They look at different things. Some things are more important for one company, which is less important for another. Example could be a Volvo might look at startups differently than a Daimler, and a GM may not consider startups as an option. So it depends how you look at it. So my suggestion is to look at in daily life what kind of strategies. Even the tea shop near your own street somewhere, near your college somewhere, he also has a strategy. He does not come up there just because he found a place there. He can find place somewhere else too. So, but there is a way to look at things to make it work for you, and that's called strategy. Academia also, we have a lot of things. I'll just put a few here. You mentioned NID and IIT and Manipal. Probably MIT will get added here as well. Some professional bodies, like I said, Founders Institute is about startups. CEI is about semi-government, IEEE, SAE, IIIT, and so on. All these things only come to one question: why do we need strategy? So, one of the most important things, like I said, the need for strategy is if you want to go somewhere, even in your car, for example, you need to have a strategy. You will fix up the route, you will fix up the destination, you will fix up the time, whether you will eat on the way, whether you will pack something, who all will go, who will drive, who will sit, etc., etc., etc. So strategy is something that we need always, but strategy comes with this key called context. Many of you might think that why is management sometimes very difficult subject, because the difference between theory and practice can be very huge. What you read in a Porter's analysis or a BCG matrix might not make sense at all, or no, it may not be even called with the same name in the real world. So, how do you understand a given situation? When you are presented with a situation, you need to understand where the analysis, where your orientation, where your perspective, what is the context, how have you understood is the key, which is seen in this video, which is a few seconds. The guy walking away could be a consultant, could be a management guru or whoever. He feels he has solved the problem, and look at this guy's reaction. It will tell you everything. His body language, that was not even the problem. So most important thing to understand a problem is to understand the context. Context is the key with which you can become a good management student, a good management consultant, a good manager, or not. And that's where I think you need to understand context in any given situation. Let's assume I have to go from point A to point B, right? So A could be your home, B could be airport, whatever it is, right? So if I tell you there are, say, four routes: an orange route, a blue route, a black route, and a green route. Which route should I take? Anybody wants to take a shot at it? Which route should I take to reach B from point A? Anybody? Any suggestion?
Sir, orange route, sir.
Orange route. Why would you say that? It's possible, yeah.
Sir, it's looking simple and straight way, sir.
Simple and straight, yeah. Why not? Why complicate? Fair enough. Thank you. Anybody else? Any other route than orange?
Sorry, so maybe the blue route.
And why so?
So because it gives us perspective of the like outer area also.
Okay. So there is no right answer. Thank you, both of you. There is no right answer, and there is a good answer, but there is no right answer. The good answer is, why would I choose blue, orange, black, or green? Okay. If I want time to be shortest, okay, then I take the one which takes me fastest in the shortest time between A and B, right? My strategy is to reduce time. If it is distance, I want the shortest distance, I don't care about time, then I will optimize my strategy and my operations, my decisions, everything around distance. It could be cost, it could be comfort. What could be comfort? Suppose if I'm going from hospital, point A is hospital and B is home, and I have just taken somebody discharged from the hospital who had a spine surgery. So I would take the most comfortable road. I don't care about time, I don't care about distance, I don't care about cost. Now, why I'm giving you this perspective is this is what sets your strategy discussion. Don't get confused that the tools will give you decisions. Tools will not give you decisions. Tools will give you what you feed into the tools. Tools are, a fool with a tool is still a fool. It doesn't change anything about the person. But as a manager, as a management student, we need to understand what are we trying to optimize the situation for. If I'm optimizing for something else, maybe I am going with someone special in my life and I want the journey to be taking the longest time. It's time, but not the shortest time. So I want the longest route because I want to spend more time with the person. So unless you know the context, it's very difficult to develop a strategy. So this is very important. It does not come in the books. My specialization in IIM is also about strategy, but the biggest lesson is what are you optimizing the strategy for? Then the tools will come and stuff like that. So the good strategy, whichever you have, based on the context that you have understood, has to answer and suffice yourself is why and so what. These are two very important aspects, that why should we do this and so what happens if we do this. I think these two will make and test your strategy, whatever tool you use. Of course, we're going to discuss the tools as well, but we'll talk about this first. So remember, context is important to understand what you are trying to achieve, and when you think you have understood, put it to a test called why and so what, and then you will be convinced if you have actually understood or whether you think you have understood. Okay. So organization strategy, there are of course multiple levels, right? It might be interesting to see today, are companies trying to achieve external growth or internal growth? So yesterday I was talking to I'm advising another company, a medium-sized company, and their growth is internal. Maybe they want to grow number in one division, and another division they don't want to grow in number. Okay, so the one division is looking at internal growth, and the other division is looking at external growth. External growth could be a top line, which is increasing revenue. It could be a combination of top line and bottom line, reducing cost or increasing efficiency and increasing the revenue as well together. So for that, it is supported by three other next level strategies. Is corporate strategy. As a group, as a biggest, highest order of entity, what do you want to do? Business strategy, what are you trying to optimize your businesses for? And functional, how do you make it actually hit the road? When the rubber hits the road, you need different techniques. So corporate strategy will help you understand what businesses to be in. Like example I gave, the company is in automotive software. And do you want to go to consumer? No. They say clearly, no, we want the business that we want to be in is automotive software. So that is a first and foremost decision that you need to make. Remember the point A to B story? Very similar. What are you trying to achieve? This is the business I'm trying to achieve. So it is obviously going to be externally focused. Now, when you look at business strategy, it becomes how do I compete now? Now, this is not the only company in automotive software. There are 10 other companies in automotive software. So why do you expect that good businesses will come to you? Why will the bigger companies come and ask for you and not for someone else? So that is more looking internally. How do I make myself better? Because if I'm efficient, productivity is high, and I'm very lean and mean and agile and respond very fast, good quality and stuff like that, then it becomes very easy for me to compete in the business that I have chosen already. Then comes the functional part that we talked about. How do I organize myself? How do I allocate resources? How do I establish the whole process between ideation to delivery and customer service, etc., etc., etc. What happens if my car breaks down? Who is going to call which number? What happens now? Everything comes into how do you actually implement it. So corporate strategy is what business to be in. Business is which businesses in that you want to be in. And of course, functionally, how to be good in that. Now, in terms of analysis and strategy, I'm pretty sure you might have heard these tools. So, SWOT is one of the most important things, right? The strength and weaknesses. You start with that, then you go to your five forces. Now, the point is, like I said, it's not to apply the tool blindly. The tool is optimized or not optimized based on your input. So, what the results coming out of your tool will not give you much more than the quality of the input that you have given. If you want to be active in share riding, which is very different from passenger cars, both are automotive but very different goals that you're trying to achieve. In that, you could be traditional engines, it could be electric vehicles. So there could be multiple ways to slice and dice, and that's where the threats and the opportunities come into picture along with your PESLE as well. So you would have seen this how the political situation today is changing as we speak. Over the last few months, due to the politics, there has been a lot of disturbances in the supply chain coming from China. Economically, people have been going through a hell, and then people have started to change their spending habits, right? Socially, we are going through perhaps one of the most unprecedented changes as well. Technologically, we might not have seen much, but what you're going to see is also going to be more automation and more, let's say, if people were talking about autonomous car, if you ask them last year, they would say 10 years. Now probably they'll say 15, 20 years. So there is an impact technologically and of course ecologically as well, though it's more positive this time. So with all this, what are you trying to do? Is when you look at the SWOT, you can always still come back and say, you know what, this is my weakness, this is my strength, these are the opportunities, these are the threats. But please remember, in this context, you will only know what you know. Most of the opportunities is what you see. If there are opportunities that you don't know, it will not come into your SWOT. So in simple words, remember it this way. The analysis of your strength and weakness will sort of show what you're really good at and also show what you're not really good at now. Not good at does not mean you cannot be good at. It is not the current competency that you have. So it will show what you're very good at and what you're not. Even as a person, we have the same things. We are good in X, we are not so good in Y. If you look at strength and opportunities, you can understand that there are certain things that you can go after and you have a sense of confidence because you have a reason to be. Okay, if a batsman is good in seeing the ball quickly and judging the length, he can be confident that he can score runs irrespective of whichever part of the world he or she is playing. When you look at threats and opportunities, you will understand possibilities, not opportunities directly. Possibilities meaning I can do that, I can go after that, but I have to build this or I have to be prepared for this. This is the risk behind it. And the last but not least is where you need to be cautious. And most times, companies what they get wrong is the cautious part, because there are blind spots for everyone. When you're walking, there is a field of vision beyond which you cannot see. When you're driving, there is a spot behind which you cannot see. So every company, every person, every entity has a blind spot. Now that is what I call knowing what you don't know. And if you're not aware of that, that's where you need external eyes, you need consultants, etc., to tell you what you don't know yourself. I think that's where you need to know where I should not do. So most of the strategies talk about what to do. This part of the strategy you should understand should tell you what not to do, right? Many companies who are very successful actually do this very well. While they decide in the strategy what to do, they also discuss what not to do, and that becomes the biggest strength when you are in difficulty as well. So the five forces you all would know, so I don't want to explain too much, but the whole idea here is don't look at it from a semantics perspective. Just words will not help you here. Again, new entrants by design may be somebody who's not existing today. So how can you know what you don't know today? That's one of the key, that's where you need to be having your eyes and ears open and look at your adjacent markets. That's one of the key points in the five forces that I want you to look at. And rivalry is very similar. You may not be aware of what's going on because still a new product comes out. Most companies will not talk about whether they are cooking, what they are cooking, and when it will be brought out. Right? So you need to be very aware that just because you don't know, that does not mean it does not exist. And substitutes are always a problem. especially when changes like this happen, which we are going through. These field five forces will always be very helpful in terms of substitute as well. The value chain analysis is another interesting one, especially in today's context. The classical model, as you would have studied, will have inbound operations, outbound with operations in between, leading to sales and marketing, supported by secondary activities like HR, technology, purchasing, etc., IT, and so on, all leading to hopefully profit. So between the primary and secondary activities, you need to be clear. You need to be very clear where do you want to operate? Where do you want to actually operate so that you can add value? What does add value mean? Again, these are words which you should really understand. Adding value means nothing more than what can you do so well that it's very difficult for others to do it the same way. Okay, it's very important to understand adding value. One of the biggest reasons that we talk about this today is when you ask a startup, when you ask many companies, even big companies, one of the biggest mistakes that you can hear from them is everybody is my customer and I want to do everything. That's not possible. Today, at the rate at which you need to churn out new products, Samsung can churn out a new mobile in 3 months. And while a car takes 5 years to develop a new chassis. So it's a world of difference in which industry you're in. Again, context, but at the same time, if you want to be looking at certain particular parts of the value chain, that is most important. In other words, it is also called business model. I'm pretty sure you would have heard this term too. Often in the startup world, we ask them, what is your business model? And when we say them, what is the business model? What we're actually asking is for them to tell us, right? Where do you make money? Okay. If Airtel is giving you service, they don't charge you for the SIM directly, right? For the set-top box or for the router that an Act or a Geo gives you. So where do you make money is either in the service or in the warranty, post-warranty service. So you should be very clear in understanding when you analyze a business, where is this business actually making money? Uber is very common example you can discuss where Uber is not making money by investing in cars or selling in cars or hiring drivers or anything. They're making money by connecting someone who wants a ride with someone who can give a ride and taking a little bit of money in between. So the business model will help you understand value chain is where exactly are you adding value. Chroma does not make products. They make some of their own now, but initially if you take classically a Reliance Digital or a Chroma does not have their own product. So they mainly do sales and marketing value addition, right? So that is how you should understand value chain as well, because that will help you understand what strategy you can develop as well. So the McKinsey position attractiveness is also something you would have heard. One of the most important thing is when the industry attractiveness is low and the unit's competitive position is low, it's one of the things that you should think classically is to get rid of them, right? Well, not necessarily. Sometimes the resource allocation helps you do what others are not doing. So when there is a crisis, there is a lot of studies which you can also look up later. Whenever there is a crisis like this, a bigger crisis like what we have today economically, those companies who invested, remember what I'm saying, those companies who invested extra money to grow certain things within their company and invest in different activities, when the economy rebounds in a year, 2, 3, on an average, these companies who invested in the hard times grow 40% more than the companies who did not invest. So don't think that it is no-brainer that when you have a crisis, you just need to cut costs. No. Many acquisitions happening as we speak. So the strategy is to see long-term. You don't need a strategy if you're not looking long-term, right? You don't actually need to do all this stuff if you don't look at long-term. So when you look at long-term, it is, okay, commonly this is the time to cut costs, but where can I put in money? And it need not be symmetric that you put money in every part in the same way. Now, in the BCG concept, again, you need to understand the same way. It's a different, to me, it's a almost similar thought processes behind these two matrices. So when the market share versus the growth rate is high market share and growth rate is low, probably you can still cash it, but maybe you can still think, can you bring it back to another quadrant of the other three? And of course, when the both are high, That's a good, sweet spot to be in. But be assured that sweet spot will start to erode and it will move away to one of the other quadrants as well. Maybe there will be competition. Maybe there will be a price erosion. Maybe something will happen so that it will come down. And then, of course, when the market share is low, right, and the industry growth rate is pretty high, you might wonder, right, when your relative market share is low, but the industry growth rate is high, you might wonder. Again, that is a part of the strategy. No, it's okay. I don't want to be. For example, let me give you an example of a strategy from my own firm. We are an innovation consulting firm. We are clearly in our strategy, we have said we will not end up doing business by building software development teams. We'll come up with innovative ideas for software development, but we will never ever build software teams and make a company to develop software. So it is okay to have the question mark and it is okay to answer yes and answer no. But remember the two questions, why and so on. Why do you not want to develop a software development team as a part of Prasu? Very simply put, we don't want to do that because we want to focus on what we are good at. Our core competency is to generate new stuff. Development teams create more of the same stuff, and that's exactly where the strategy is very clear. We don't want to do X, but we want to do Y. Of course, when both are low, you are either wasting money or you're there for a certain reason, right? Question to some of you: ITC and cigarettes, where do you put it? ITC as a company and cigarettes as a business unit. Where do you put it in this quadrant?
So cigarettes can be in cash cow.
Okay, so cash cow means low growth rate of the industry and high market share. Possible, yeah. Any other answers?
So for ITC, it would be stars. What I
Stars.
think.
If you look at numbers, it's more stars than cash cow because there are still more people who are smoking in this part of the world than in other parts of the world. So, yeah. But either way, the reason I asked that question is as a strategy, they could decide to walk out of that business unit. But perhaps they are not doing it for various other reasons. So, think about these kind of dilemmas. If you want to be good in management and strategy, especially, you have to ask these difficult questions. Why is not ITC walking away from cigarette business when they know it is injurious to health? Right? So these are the questions that has to come up. You have to answer to your own satisfaction and then move on. There is no right or wrong answer, but there has to be an answer for each of this. Now, based on that business, you can come with 4 types of approaches based on cost or differentiation. And again, 2 versions of the same thing, focused cost or focused differentiation. For cost is about I will make sure my system, my infrastructure, my business operations, my supply chain, everything is set up so efficiently that I can almost always assure that I'll be the cheapest. A Walmart, a Costco, right? A Metro, or it could be DMart. So they have made sure that there is every single drop of inefficiency squeezed out. Of course, focus is the opposite of that. Differentiation is the opposite of that. I will not focus on cost or anything. I'll make sure my offering is so unique that my customers will love to have what I want, what I'm giving them. So they would love to have this, and I can even charge a premium for that. Obviously, if you are already introduced to pricing, this will not be cost-based pricing. This will be value-based pricing, right? And the focused cost is where you pick a certain segment and focus low cost in that segment only. Okay, maybe the springs for a certain car, spark plugs for a certain segment, and so on and so forth. And the last version, of course, is the focus differentiation, where you pick differentiation but in a smaller niche segment because it's easier to achieve. How does it look like if the organization growth strategy can be used? Let's say for innovation is one of the most contemporary growth strategies for many organizations. I advise many companies on this and in the same topic. So if the cost leadership is something like small powder, like Nirma or something like that, they make sure that they give the cheapest product. Differentiation could be something like an iPhone or so, where the feel, the perception, the experience is the key for them. And of course, focused niche could be a Porsche car, or a Lamborghini. Their sales doubled and most of the time when you hear something sales doubled, you get delighted. And their double sales was 4,600 cars. So that's the kind of number they do on a yearly basis, right? So when you look at innovation as a strategy and how does it link to these things, you can say incremental innovation could be for cost leadership. I make Nirma say eco. That means maybe there are less chemicals and more hand friendly. It's a small change in what I do. And in a disruptive innovation as a strategy, so incremental innovation could be one strategy for cost leadership. Disruptive innovation could be a strategy for creating differentiation. The touch experience, the still till today, it's one of the best that you can get. So maybe it's about the cars, maybe it's about the banking. So everything is about experience, and it brings a drastic change in stuff like that. A couple of years ago, a bank in Australia usually has these system. The banks have this closed circuit TV. So in the main entrance, they had a camera. So one of the disruptive things for an experience they did was, as soon as somebody walks in, the image is captured, it's processed, checked with the database of the bank, and a message is flashed to the senior managers of the bank on duty at that time, saying a high net worth individual has walked into the bank. So usually in bigger banks like this, there is about 10-20 steps you need to take before you reach someone. So in that time, the senior manager will walk down, intercept the individual who has walked in, and then take him to a different corner of the office, give him special treatment, sell him more products maybe. So this is a very disruptive thinking in terms of how you create an experience. Of course, incremental disruptive also can be a very unique in terms of a Porsche car, or a friend of mine designed a shoe with diamonds, right? So people have that kind of disruptive thinking, or they make very different approaches to make the experience better. So segmentation and positioning is what market segment is sometimes very confusing. What does it mean actually? It's not too complicated if you understand it from the customer's perspective. What group of customers are similar enough to offer the same product? For example, a builder who is selling apartments will not put a big billboard in front of a college, right? Because they are not his customers, but he would rather put it outside a tech park, maybe, right, or a mall. So those are the places where he expects his kind of customers to come. And when you say his kind of customer, that's where, like I said earlier, the bigger mistake is everybody is my customer is a wrong statement. Then I have to put ads everywhere, which is not possible. That means I'm diluting my offering, right? That is the market segmentation. What type of customers? They're usually 35 years, they are educated, they're graduate, they're earning, blah, 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 small family, nuclear family, whatever it is. And then comes the selecting the target market is who are this in that group, who are the target customers, who are newly married, who have only one kid, who have a bank score of this, etc., etc. And then comes positioning. What will be my offering? How am I positioning it? So many companies say, pay 2 lakhs now, and rest of them you pay in the end of the construction for an apartment. Or for the car, they say you buy now, you pay next year. So are you positioning it for liquidity starved customers, or are you putting for first time customers, or there's a repeat customers, or somebody who has a different brand who want you to change to your brand, etc., etc. So the strategies differ depending on what you're trying to do. The market segment will help you decide the product type, the price point, the customer serve, and the target market will sell. Where will I sell? Will I sell in Chroma, or will I open my own store? Lenskart has its own store now, though it started as an online only. So the market that they're selecting is very up market, not very low, not very high end, but more uppish middle market, right? So basically what it means is in the life cycle, the strategy can still change. On the x-axis is time, on the y-axis is revenue. So early is called the emerging market when you have put a new product on the market, right? When iPads came, I was very skeptical. What will people actually do with it? So that was an emerging market at that time. Then we see the growth phase if it picks up. When the consumers adopt it, you get a very large growth. Then it starts to stabilize or it starts to mature. That's where it sort of flattens out, right? Sales are there. Maybe it's more or less the same as last month, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less, but I can make out over the 3 months, 4 months average that it is, more or less stable now. Then comes the decline part. This is where organizations have to be ready, not react at this stage, but already expect this cycle and then develop the strategy. And that's what I talk about as a life cycle and strategy is you don't wait for a reaction, you plan for a response. When the decline is there, do you make it a dog or do you make it a cash cow? Or do you even have a choice to make one of the two? So, how does it work? In the emerging phase, you have an entrepreneurial strategy. You're very aggressive, you're very bullish, you advertise a lot, you test a lot, you're prepared to face criticism, you're ready to face failures. When the growth phase, you manage it. You do more of the same thing. You manage that you do. For example, now iPhone 12 has been delivered, right? Now the growth phase is when people start to go and buy. If you and me start to go and buy, and every 3 times we go, they say no stock, no stock. They have not managed the growth phase. So the strategy is supply chain, production, plan for it, estimate it, and manage the whole chain. Maturity phase is where you ensure you don't let others eat your market share. It should actually have your full market share and it should only grow. That's why I talked about ITC too. They're in that phase and probably very edge to the decline phase as well. Declining phase, you have to be very protective. Maybe you start to deliver less numbers. Maybe you say, no, we don't do that anymore, etc., etc. But it cannot be feeding itself. You have to manage that phase as well. So emerging entrepreneurial, growth is a growth, maturity is market power, and declining is where you have to be very protective of what you want to do. In the selection, just to summarize, take any analysis that you want, any tool, but remember a fool with a tool is still a fool. You need to understand the context of the industry to develop the focus areas that you need to have. You can use many other tools, market research, data, critical success factors to compare, etc., etc. All that you need to do from the industry that you have selected is what is the focus area and then the opportunity in that focus area. Automotive is not an opportunity. Automotive is a focus area, maybe even an industry. Okay, autonomous vehicle, if industry is automotive, focus area could be autonomous vehicle or electric vehicle. Opportunity could be servicing electric charge dispensing as an opportunity. That's when you develop problem statement, innovation, solutions, technology, and build strategy for that. So, for example, the strategy for an electric vehicle today is what? I make an electric car. So, what is my strategy? Where will I give chargers for them? I'm giving a charger to charge at home. But if I'm driving, I don't have a strategy. Now, that is where this whole adoption of electric vehicles is taking a backseat. Is the strategy is not coming from the maker of the product. It's dependent on someone else. So you need to have these three layers, and then after this comes the resource allocation. Resource allocation is basically an end game in this whole discussion, but not completely, and I'll tell you why. In the fit model, I will say that my strategy is based on existing resources and capabilities. I have 300 people. I'm in software, I'm in Python, I'm in hardware, I'm in XYZ, I'm in fintech. This is what I can do. I have the opportunities listed, but if this 300 people with this skill set, this is what I can do, and hence I will allocate the resources accordingly. Right? Now the opposite comes in the intent model. In the strategic intent model, I just do the exact opposite of this. I have listed opportunities. So I have to enter into consumer electronics. I was talking about the automotive software company. If they want to enter consumer electronics market, then that is called an intent model. Then they have to say, what do I need to build in terms of resources and capabilities to achieve this new ambition, this new goal? That is my new strategy. So fit model is based on what you have today in simple words. Intent model is where you want to go and hence what do you need to get there, right? So if I can walk, just to give an example of the fit model, I have no cycle, I have no car, I have no bus. So if I can walk 7 kilometers a day. Intent model is I want to go 50 kilometers. Do I need a car? Do I need a helicopter? Do I need a cycle? That's the difference between the two. Okay. Now in terms of structure, there are many variations depending on whom you ask. It could be up to 15 even depending on how thinly they slice. But don't get bogged down by what it is called. Understand how it works. Okay. A functional structure is typically, if you see the value chain, you will get the idea of what functions the organization takes, right? So all those are grouped into one or major function: marketing, HR, operations, services, procurement, etc. Under that, they have different, sub functions as such. So this is a very classical functional structure where everything is centralized and hierarchically connected to the CEO. So basically, it's a hierarchical structure where it is used in terms of function. The good thing is it's very clear. Organization can know who is who, but it can slow down. It can create overlaps. It can create gaps. It can create slowness in decision making and so on. So basically, it's a hierarchical stuff. How you have arranged the hierarchy will make it a divisional structure or a functional structure. If it is based on division, the same hierarchy continues. But then say no, Indian market is one division, United States is one market, Middle East is a market, LATAM is another market, or government orders is one market. So still hierarchy, still separated, still the same pros and cons, but the reason for the structuring is different. If you do it geographically, the same hierarchy applies, but again now it's for geography, not from division. So all these are basically one type of organization. Matrix is pretty common now for a simple reason that organizations have become global. So they have somebody who is good at something, and that's a functional aspect, and there is somebody who is facing the customer. So an inward looking function like competency and an outward looking function like customer engagement. So since these are by nature two different things, one person cannot do that. So if there are two people, who will manage that person? So that's when the matrix structure kicked in to manage inward and outward looking activities of an organization. This has again pros and cons. It can be very consumer friendly because consumer talks to one person and he gets things done inside the organization. But decision making is very complex. And one of the biggest drawbacks of this structure is typically every person has two bosses to report to. Okay, that can cause a lot of problems in terms of priority setting and quick movements. A new thing is emerging called flat organizations. You might be surprised, but it already exists in some parts of the world. A flat organization is where people come to the office, nobody tells anybody to do anything. Yeah, it might sound very weird to you, but there are some companies who actually practice it. So I go to the office, I decide which product to work with. Or if I want to start my own project, I go to the finance person, I hand down the finance person and ask for money. So it depends on what you're trying to do. Again, goes back to context. There are certain types of businesses it could work. There are certain types it may not work. Okay. If you summarize everything, it's basically a variation of two typical variables. On one side, every organization should give you freedom to operate, freedom to take decisions, and you should be feeling empowered to make certain choices. On the other hand, if everybody does that, and on the extreme left is flat organization, and the extreme right is hierarchical organization, where you have full control and command. It's like an army setup. Army setup, the major knows everything that's going on, and everything that's going on is decided by that person. Okay, and similarly, you have variations in between these two elements. So you need to understand that could be for various reasons you could choose one or the other. Please don't have the opinion that one is better than the other. Yes, depending on your context. Remember, the point A to B discussion is exactly the same. What are you trying to achieve will help you. Certain organizations have a mix. In one part of the organization, they have hierarchy. In one part of the organization, they have metrics. In one part of the organization I used to work for, I had a flat, right? So it depends a lot on what you're trying to achieve. Last slide is strategy is a calculated risk management. You need to be on top of things to really understand whether you are trying to achieve something. If there is no risk, if there is no new, if there is nothing new, if it is status quo, you don't need strategy. If it is long term, only then you need. If it is short term, you don't need strategy. But understand that strategy has risks, but even without strategy, you have risks. So that's why it's a calculated risk management approach using strategy. And I think you can learn a lot from your daily life as well. Whether you want to take a flight, you have a strategy. What time you want to reach, what mode transportation you want to take. So there is still an amount of risk that there is an unprecedented traffic jam, right? So, but it's a known route with all of traffic jam. You might take a different approach. So this is what I wanted to share with this video. I would like you to see this video and understand what it means to be different. If you have a strategy, you have to communicate the strategy. In this case, the strategy was very clear, but except him, nobody knew, right? So, as an organization, as a manager, as a management student, you should understand strategy is not a secret. Everybody should understand, and 84% of the CEOs are not trusted in most global organizations because nobody understands what he or she is trying to do. That's the biggest type of strategy, and I think you should overcome that. Thank you so much. This is what I wanted to share. I'm on LinkedIn, like I said. I have my TEDx talk if you want to listen to, and I have also something on Udemy if you are interested in innovation and stuff like that. So thank you very much, and I'm open for some question answers if you have.
Yeah, sure, sir. This was a great presentation.
Thank you.
Yeah, friends, can we have few questions with us, sir?
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Sir, in India, sir, most of the startups fail, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, if we are starting a new startups, and then what are the things we have to keep in the mind to not to keep in the mind that our startup also not fail, sir.
Excellent question. Thank you for asking. 95% of the startups fail in a city like Bangalore. So this was a 2018
Sir,
study.
sorry to intervene in between.
Yeah.
I just wanted to bring you one important issue. All the students in this course are from the entrepreneurship program.
Okay. Excellent. That's even better.
Yeah.
Even better. So 95% of the startups in a city like Bangalore fail, and that's why I said you have a very good question. And the number one reason, let me tell you what kind of people they are, because I've worked with many of them. They are very smart people like you. They have educated from best of the schools like you. Many of them have experience. Many of them have MTechs and PhDs. So why is it still that 95% is failing? So the number one reason the IBM study found out in 2018 study was that the number one reason startups fail is because they build what nobody wants. And that's one of the most ignored important things. It is like this: if I come up with a medicine first, I will try to look for a disease. That's exactly what the 95% of the startups do. They create a product in their mind, they create a service in their mind, they create an app in their mind, and then they start to think why it is not working. Now, nobody buys anything if they don't have a need. So, most of these 95% of the companies don't have a good problem statement. I mentor many of them. So, if you want to be successful, you need to have doubly sure, checked, validated problem statement. That is the reason, the best thing, and you will take care of 90% of the stuff that happens afterwards.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So I have a cross question to your answer.
Yeah.
Sir, because you just said we first need to identify the problem and then build upon the solution for that. Considering the example of Byju's, so it is a edtech startup, but need for online education was like not before, like not before the pandemic or something, but they still banged upon that, and now they are very successful, and they're continuously growing. So at that time, that was not a problem for anyone, like for at least middle class people or high class people. So how then they are successful?
Very good
Because
question.
they didn't serve the problem.
Correct.
It was just an idea.
Correct. So, two questions. Please understand how startups work. Then I'll come to the Byju's specifically. How many of you think Flipkart makes profits?
None of us.
So, why is it that it's still running? So, is it successful then?
Yes,
So,
sir.
the whole idea is these companies, when they are startups, they run on investors' money. Number one, that is not a successful business. Businesses exist to make money. right? Ethically, of course, but they have to make money. Now, let's go back to Byju's. The problem statement is not lack of online education for Byju's. For Byju's, the problem statement was how do I get my child better additional education, complementary education, which will help him or her score more. That was, I think, this is an age-old problem for India that has been there even from the time I graduated. So that was being met by Byju's. And but trust me, let me tell you something. Don't judge a business based on 5-10 years of life. Judge a business after more than 10-12 years of a good business starts to make money after 3 years, right? But a good sustainable business will take more than 10 years to prove that is sustainable business. If you just watch the internet on Byju's, just do some Google research in the after this class, and you will see what's going on with Byju's actually. Because I don't want to bias you, but I encourage you to have a look at it as such.
So I have one more question.
Sure.
That you initially told about that while as an investor, they will look for in a business model they will look for revenue part. But for that, according to my business model, shows everything like the operations also and how they will work. But for if they want to see the revenue part, they can simply ask us for the revenue model.
Very good question. So I sit in this pitches. Sorry, I didn't get your name.
So my name is Gurnish.
Gurnish. So nice question. So
Yes.
I sit in this pitches. So what happens is, let me give the context. Again, context is very important. If I'm an investor, I can put my money in stocks and shares, no, or in a fixed deposit. Why should I put it in startups? Right? So the idea is in startups, I get much more than what I get in stocks and shares. At the same time, I can have much more visibility and pseudo control over what a startup does with my money. Okay. So with that interest, I come into the pitch. So when I come into the pitch, I first know whether there is enough money in this startup. Once I see that number, I want to be more, the risk has to be calculated in my mind now. I need to convince myself that this is a risk worth taking. So, what do I do then? I ask questions. Questions to know whether they have an answer or whether they know how to find an answer. 50% of our assessment in a pitch is only based on what you present as a startup. 50% of our judgment is how you present it. Are you confident? Are you sincere? Are you integrate in your integrity in your approach? These are the things that we see for 50%. Of course, we don't tell it out in the open, but when we ask questions, we are not looking at the answer. We are looking at how you came to the answer. So, as a business, you need inbound operations. I am advising a small startup in EV space, off-road EV, okay, off-road electric vehicle. So they are very clear that they don't have operations. So I advise them as an investor, he will not buy, say, I have the product, but I don't know where to make it, is not an answer for an investor. So what they expect is in the value chain analysis, I make money in designing products. I can get production arranged with a partner, but I'm not making money for my company in production that somebody else makes. My money, my business model is coming up with new products. So that will give you where is your value addition. Why you exist is because I create new products. I create, so Apple, iPhone does not have their own factories. Flex does it. So Flex makes money by producing, Apple makes money by designing. But we buy phones of iPhone, not of Flex. So iPhone is responsible for manufacturing, but they don't do it themselves. So you need all the functions, but you don't have to do it yourself.
Okay, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, Rishabh, you want to say ask something? Rishabh?
So may I?
Please, Rishabh is not able to unmute. I think he has unmuted.
Sir, I'm back. I will ask question after Bhargavi.
Okay, no issue. Yes, Bhargavi, please.
So I had a very generic question. If I have a business, I made a strategy. I was very confident about that strategy, but somehow it didn't work as I expected it to. So at this stage, should I think of re-strategizing or should I pull it out?
Excellent question. This is let me pick on. Don't mind. I'll pick on some of the words you used. So it did not work. Somehow is not an option. It is possible that strategies don't work. The best of the strategies have a feedback system, because it's not that I see my strategy results after 1 year and then I discover it's not working. So a part of the strategy is how do I know it is working is also a strategy. So you need to build that system, one, so that you already know there is something called lead indicator and lag indicator. Lead indicator tells you my sales are slowing down. Last month was 1% less, this month is 5% less. So there is something going on. That's a lead, that's an indicator to tell you that something might come up. Right? So having said that, whatever reason it is not working, what is your strategy? If your strategy is to stop the business, you can as well. If your strategy is to let it go whichever way it wants, that's another strategy too. No strategy is a strategy also, right? Third is this did not work and I know why it did not work. Can I do a course correction and do a better strategy this time? And that's where I said why you asked is a good question is earlier the time horizon was 3 to 5 years for strategy. Now it is 3 months. Organizations are reviewing strategy 3 months once. So we are in a very fast-paced thing, and we should be increasing the speed of reviewing strategy as well. That will make it heavy, but it will make it worthwhile.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, Rishabh.
Yes, sir. Sir, I actually had question because I own a startup.
Mm-hmm.
From I'm a CEO for the startup from last 1.5 years, and sir, due to the pandemic, like I have an e-commerce website.
Mm-hmm.
So due to the pandemic, sir, the business has went down, and now I'm facing issue coming up with the distribution channel once again. Like my complete vendors are lost because of the pandemic. Some are being open, some are not being able because of being in the red zone. So because of that, and also due to India-China trade war, by most of the product were coming from China directly. But due to COVID, I haven't received even a single container since
Correct.
February. So, sir, how to keep my business running at that point of time without losing customer? Because I've already in between the mid time, I shut it down my website server so that there should be no negative application on the website or that. But once the pandemic lockdown was over, I was forced to switch it on because we have actually a brand name already being developed in tier 2, tier 3 cities already. So I was not able to keep that lock for that long period. So once I came up with that again, and now I've almost cancelled more than 10 orders on a monthly basis because I'm not able to fulfill it. Either by due to my like I have delivery as my career partner for delivering, so they are not able to deliver at that level at DTDC and Blue Dart R. And even so, I had Razorpay as my payment acceptor. They withdrew because they were not getting at least that limited that we set at per pre-lockdown basis. So right now I'm forced to use a limited production, which the product we are getting from the market and sell it to them. And one Amazon came up like renewed product with a heavy discount as of now. So they are selling it even lower price than what I actually buy from my vendor. So these are the problems that I'm facing as of now. How to overcome them?
So, I mean, it's unfair for me to say that I'll give you a solution in few minutes, which I spent a few years to build. So, but what I'm suggesting is basically two ways. If you, strategy is always nice when you go hindsight. But having said that, it's fair that you should have known that your single point of failure was your supply side rather than the demand side. I think that is very clear even now from what you're saying. If at all
Yes,
you
sir.
had supply, you could still. That also
Well
goes
said.
back previous question. Today, when you are having businesses, it's very important. Now, if you look at the pest lay, you have multiple risk factors, right? That's why I said strategic management is a very smart way to manage risk, and that's how you manage your business. One of the known established common sense way to establish or run a sustainable business is diversified portfolio, right? Either you have a second source or you have a second business line, and that's how mutual funds are actually gaining traction in the last decade, is because it's less, the returns are lesser than stocks, but it's much more than FD. So there is a kind of a risk balance between risk and reward. Same applies to business also, Rishabh. So unfortunately, there is no one answer, but I think if you are looking at seriously sustaining this, you have to reboot option B for supply, or you change a product which you don't need the current option as a supplying partner for you. And in
So
your
I'm
strategy, you
working
should
on it.
build these factors. Yeah.
I'm actually working on getting a new product. And I'm doing a test run for that. So once I am clear with that for the 6 months period, then I would be launching it.
Yeah, but be
Just to
assured it is not a unique problem. So what happens when you assess risk is, if you just look at last October, and if you had looked at the geopolitical risk, nobody would have given it a high score, maybe low, at best medium. So these are things that happen in business. That's why you need management students and management people. Otherwise, it will run by itself, right? Having said
yes, sir.
that, the critical thing is even the car manufacturers. Yesterday, I was talking to a big car manufacturer, and the number two VP was telling me that as a country, China has told car manufacturers who are manufacturing and selling cars in China that if you don't source components from China, we will not let you operate in China. Now, that is a kind of barrier that can be put on you. That's a regulatory barrier which you have no control. All you have to do is to respond to it, and that's where monitoring is in a regular basis will help you. It could be even your Bharat norms, right? Your emission levels could be a barrier for you. So generally, yes, it has to be better, but you cannot have every risk as high. Then there is nothing to do, right? So you have to be able to respond quickly rather than anticipate everything.
Thanks a lot, sir.
No problem.
Yes, friends, anybody is having any question? Sir has beautifully answered all the questions which was being raised by yours. So it seems that
No
people
problem.
are quite satisfied with the answers.
Good.
Sir, I have one thing.
Yes.
Yeah,
While
please go.
giving the introduction about sir, I said that he's a cartoonist and an actor as well. So we would like to know more about sir, and if he shares like his LinkedIn profile, so we can connect to him.
Sure. It is just as my name spells, so I'll just flash it here again. So this is my LinkedIn profile at the top, right top. So you can connect to me. So what did you want to know? Sorry, I missed that part.
Sir, actually, I read in your profile that you are a like sportsman as well
Yeah.
and a stand-up comedian as well.
Yeah. So I do
So
stand-up comedy. I do cartoons. I play.
These few services are chargeable also.
Laughter, I tend
Kind
not to.
enough.
Now, recently in the lockdown, I did for my IMK association, alumni association. So that must be somewhere in my YouTube channel also. So
okay.
I didn't list it here. Probably there is a YouTube channel which has some of these videos. You can look at that. So yeah, I think there is one connection between innovation and humor. I think if you are not positive, you cannot be humorous. If you're not humorous, you cannot be relaxed. If you're not relaxed, you don't get new ideas, and learning will be very
Yes.
low. So that's the cycle I try to follow, and whatever I need to do that's my strategy. I do that. So that's what it is, and I'm also a volunteer in IEEE. I've acted in two Kannada movies and two cookery shows. So I've done a unique movie that we did during lockdown in 4 or 5 locations globally, only online. So we made a short movie. So that was also a good success. So I've done illustration for a song, Hum Mile, by a friend of mine from IMK, and that has crossed 1 lakh views in terms of. He's a good singer, so I just did the illustration for him. So that might be something you might like it. So maybe I'll just send a couple of links to. Just drop me a mail at this mail ID on the left top. One of you, then I'll share all this with you. You can, if you're interested, you can have a look.
Sure, sir. Thank you.
No problem.
Yeah, it was a wonderful listening to you, Dr. Saab. I'll request Bhargavi to please propose a formal vote of thanks.
So first of all, thank you so much for connecting with me on LinkedIn already.
Thank you.
And it was a wonderful session, sir. We've learned so much from you in such a limited time today. And we're so grateful to you for sharing your knowledge with us and giving us an opportunity to interact with you. On behalf of the entire class, I'd like to extend my heartiest thanks to you for connecting with us. And we hope we will get a little more interaction sessions with you sometime in the near future. Thank you so much, sir.
Sure, Bhargavi. Pleasure is mine. Thank you, Dr. Rahul.
Yeah, so nice of you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you very
for
much.
sparing your time.
Thank you, sir.
Sure. Good luck to all of you. Take care.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Only